just waiting for Jon Bean, our Deputy Director, to join us today. We're going to be talking about election results. So just want to make sure that we're going to talk about the June primary that we just finished up. So good afternoon, Vintage Monique. Thank you for joining. I think it's going to be a fun conversation, just talking a little bit about the election results. Just waiting for Jon to join on. Drop in the chat if you have any questions that you would like us to cover. Just waiting for Jon to hop on. Hey, there's Jon.
Hello.
What's up, Jon? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay. We just got out of staff meeting, so thanks for coming to talk with me today about this. We had severe lock-in from East Bay Alliance for Sustainable Economy, and Jose Bernal from Ella Baker for Human Rights, Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, our partners, but Severe's not feeling well, and Jose is working on some things that are happening at Santa Rita right now, that we're hearing some news about, really sad news that someone has died at Santa Rita. And so I think that goes into some about what we're going to talk about today. We don't have a lot of details, so but I know that Ella Baker Center is working on some of that stuff, so trying to figure that out. But so let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. Jon, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jon Bean. I'm Deputy Director, Oakland Rising Action. How y'all doing?
I'm Liz Huck. I am the Executive Director of Oakland Rising. And today we're going to be talking from our Oakland Rising hat and our C3 hat. We're just talking about the election results. So we're not going to talk about, anything that Oakland Rising Action in terms of like who we supported on that side and advocating for anybody in terms of like what's happening for the fall, but we're definitely going to talk about the results that have come in thus far. Folks continue to drop in the chat like what you want to know about and what you want us to focus on. But let's start off. Jon, what are you having for lunch? This is our Monday meal, so always ask these 2 questions.
Oh yeah. You know me, I'm always the early morning smoothie man. So I got up, I made my, what I have today, mango, peach, and little berry smoothie. Lunch, I haven't thought too much. It may be some leftovers. I made like a big meal last night, some chicken and sausage stir fry. And might get back into
I'm
that.
still waiting for Jon to invite me over for dinner, because y'all don't know Jon is a very good cook, and I don't have evidence of that because I haven't eaten his food yet. So
I got you.
But what are you doing these days, Jon, to nourish yourself? Because that's the other question we always ask everybody. How are you nourishing yourself, your body, your mind, your spirit, your heart, like whatever's important to you to share today. And for folks who are joining us, like put in the chat, what are you having for lunch? I want to know people are eating, and I want to know how you're taking care of yourself. What are the ways that you nourish yourself? What's nourishing you these days?
Yes, well, you may know, but others might not know. I run a ton. I was in the gym this morning. I try to stay in the gym as often as possible. It's not a bad thing for me. Like some people like dread going to the gym. I actually enjoy going to the gym. I love running. I always have since a teenager. That's definitely one thing I keep in my repertoire. And also, I have been in therapy since the pandemic. I've haven't been in therapy since I was a young child, and I felt I felt it very necessary and the need for it during the pandemic, just being disconnected and away from everyone, and yeah, not being
Yeah.
able to give Liz a big hug when I would like to, and yeah, so therapy has really grounded me and kept me. Um, yeah, just moving through this tragic moment that we're in right now.
Oh, I appreciate that. I love that. I love that you're going to therapy. And me too. I've been seeing my therapist. I don't know. I found them during the pandemic, but it wasn't definitely not because of the pandemic. I was just like taking a while to find the right person that I wanted to work with. And I really love my therapist. Like not in a romantic way, you all, but like I really respect and I love the way that she does the work that she does. And one thing that folks might not know about me is that actually I used to provide therapy and do counsel. I used to be a counselor and do direct service work. That was like my work for a really long time before I really shifted into like full-time movement work. And so when I like work with therapists, I'm really picky. I'm like,
Right.
I do full on interview and just to props to all you who are in therapy um, and all of that. And, also to folks who might not be, it's okay to not be too, but, I know therapy really helps folks. So let's get into it, John. Jaffe in the comments wrote, would love clarity on which races are done and if a person gets 50+1 and which still require voting in the general election. So maybe we could talk a little bit about what races were a part of that we focused on and we've been watching at Open Rising at the county level. So this primary election, everybody who ran, if you got 50+1, essentially you are in. You don't move on to the November general election. But if you didn't get the 50+1, then the top 2 vote getters move on to the next election in the fall. So that we have the runoff then. And so pretty much everybody at this point, we're not quite sure. All the results haven't come in. Yeah, the results haven't come in. But what are your thoughts, John? The first thing I wanted to talk about was the voter turnout, right?
Yeah.
I have the exact numbers pulled up, 939,402 people who are registered to vote in Alameda County and 171,457. So essentially about 18% of our registered voters voted in this election. And this, of course, means there's still precincts that have not been counted throughout Alameda County. And my understanding is that the way Alameda County Registrar of Voter does it is that election day, they did like a big dump of data from all the mail-in ballots that they have been collecting and counting till now. And then every day around 6 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, they drop a new set of numbers Monday through Friday. So today at 5:30, y'all should go to the Alameda County acgov.org/ROV results so that you can see the newest numbers that come out. But 18%, John, that's pretty dismal.
It is, and I think it speaks to a few different things. One, it was a primary election, right? So it was super, super important for folks to know about it, which takes just a lot of groundwork, a lot of money for one thing, for these campaigns to be able to get the information out to the community who needs to know the most, right? And then I also think what contributed to it is the time that we live in. I just was talking about the pandemic, and I think it changed the way that we organize and we do voter engagement and civic engagement work, right? We're not able to go up to every single person walking down the street and make sure that they're registered and make sure that they know about the information. We're not able to knock doors in the way that we used to due to COVID-19 restrictions, right? And just making sure folks are safe. And I think that these are the results of that. Folks are not being informed about where to go. That's another thing too. The polling places, where in some counties there was 100 polling places, now you may have 10.
Right.
And that also challenges folks who physically maybe not be able to get there. I know the mailing system has contributed to like folks receiving their mail-in ballots. I'm one. I didn't receive my mail-in ballot today. This past primary, so I had to go in and make sure I voted early to get it done, and like all those different things, I think contribute to like the lack of turnout this election.
Yeah, and I also think that there was, all of those are totally on point. And I think that one of the things that people have to remember, like we had that governor recall election, and actually our primary election used to be in March. And it happened in June this time, which, made sense because of our redistricting work. It kind of pushed up against that. In Oakland at least, right, like our redistricting process went all the way till March, to the end of February, right? So we would have like been pressed up against the March primary if we had to worry about that, but we didn't this time because this time it was moved to June, and that was statewide. And I think so there's that, a little bit of confusion in that. Like June seems like a weird time to have the primary because it's also graduation season, right? A lot of people are celebrating at that time. The other is that I don't think the county did a good job on letting people know that there actually was an election. I saw very little information out there. And the thing that is important to know too is that Alameda County now is a God, what is it called? Voters' choice, right? Voters' choice district or county. And so what that means is that actually you don't have the mail-in ballot and election day. You actually have mail-in ballot and then 2 weeks of open polling stations. So that's one of the reasons why they consolidated and the voting stations, and also because of the mail-in ballot situation. So I think like there's voter fatigue. There's like not enough information, not from the county. Definitely, it's been more difficult for candidates. It's been difficult for campaigns. Sorry, my dog is doing something right at my feet, and I needed to stop them. Sorry. Let's start with one of the key races that you wanted to look at that we can talk about.
Maybe one of the closest one, Elise Castro.
Oh yeah, let's start with that. That's a good one. So right now we have on Alameda County's Register of Voters website, it's saying that all the precincts are counted for, but we also know that if you go to their website, you can go to their maps, and the maps will show you that actually not all the precincts have been reported. So this is as of Friday at 5:30. So it looks like Elise Castro on June 7th was trailing L.K. Monroe, and who is the incumbent. And then Elise Castro was a few percentage points behind L.K. Monroe. And currently, Elise Castro is at 50.49%. So we might have a new superintendent of schools, which is pretty amazing. And what are some things that you've heard or would be important for folks to know about in terms of like the superintendent of schools and this race itself?
I mean, school closures, right? Like that's been one of the biggest things that's been in the news, I think, besides the pandemic, especially for Californians and Northern Californians, particularly like in Oakland, Alameda County, it's been school closures, right? And how the superintendent and how the board handled the school closure, I think, was very delicate and very important to the community. So just keeping an eye out and making sure that you're aligned with the newest superintendent and you're informed and aware of who that person is, I think is important.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that a lot of folks had some criticisms of LK Monroe was that, because the position oversees the entire budget of county funds and education that go out to the local city school districts, right? And so there was some pressure by by the superintendent of OUSD to balance their budget, and that meant that they said the way that you need to do that is by closing schools. So the pressure actually came from the superintendent, from LK Monroe, and I think there was a lot of folks who were upset about that, and that's why Elise Castro decided to run. So it looks like that's going to be a big change. What do you think about like having somebody who's a challenger, who's not the incumbent, like stepping into a big role in a system like that?
I think it really shakes up things. I've seen a pattern of it really changing the pendulum and how it swings for whoever the constituents are, no matter what like office it is, and just bringing in that fresh blood and giving someone else an opportunity to utilize their skills and their ideals and their ideology, I think is always good. Sometimes I feel like we should have elections more often, just to give people a more opportunity to do so.
Yeah. And if folks who are joining too, please feel free to like drop in the chat like questions you might have about any of these races or about any of the candidates. Let us know. Did you vote? How did you vote? Put that in the chat too, because we'd love to hear that piece. Those are always good information. The one thing I didn't share, I just realized that when I talked about the voter registration, the turnout, the voter turnout, that only 1.2%, which is about 11,000 voters, actually voted on election day. And I think we've been trying to shift the way we say it. We're trying not to say election day. We're saying last day to vote. Because, like I said, because of Voter Choice Act, we're like moving towards having 2-week voting period where you can vote in person, and you have about a month when you have your voter ballot that you can like send in through the mail or drop it in a drop box or take it to a polling location. So 1.2% is not that big. So Alameda County, and this has been a really big piece, right, of like folks who have been doing voting in the past couple of years. It has been mail-in ballot.
Right.
Do you have any opinions about mail-in ballot?
Well, I think accessibility is always better. Like more ways to vote is always going to be 2 thumbs up for me. Giving it that longer period, making sure that folks have their mail-in ballot a lot earlier seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, and the thing is that, so we've said it before, and a lot of folks have not known this, is that in 2020 we voted to have those who were formerly incarcerated given the right to vote again. So you could be actually awaiting trial and still be able to vote, which they haven't figured out how to actually do that while they're locked up. So if you are of someone who's formerly incarcerated, you are on parole or probation right now, you can go register to vote. And that was not the case before 2020. It is now, and it applies to the next election. So if you're not registered to vote, register to vote now. Well, I'm going to move on to like the next one, which was which which of the races do you want to talk about next?
I think maybe this may be the second closest one, the DA race. Let's talk about
Boop,
district
boop,
attorney.
boop, boop, right? Yeah. So we had four candidates: Pamela Price, Terry Wiley, Jimmy Wilson, and Seth Stewart. And just so
Right.
folks know, Jimmy Wilson and Terry Wiley both currently work for the district attorney's office. Seth Stewart was a former prosecutor with San Francisco, and Pamela Price was actually the lone candidate who was not a prosecutor before, but was actually a defense attorney, civil rights attorney for many years. And so Pamela, usually low voter turnout means you have more conservatives actually coming out to vote. And that was not the case in this situation. And so, like, Pamela won about 40%, 40.4, 14% of the vote, 60,000. But Terry Wiley took 29 and Jimmy Wilson took 20. So far, again, like, they still have a few precincts to count. So we don't know what that will look like. That gap might change. But so far, Pamela's only been increasing in her votes. What do you think this will look like in terms of Alameda County having a new district attorney? So this would be actually the race to answer Risa Jaffe's question earlier. This is one of those races where we don't have 50+1% of the vote counted. So Pamela and Terry Wiley, who are the top two vote getters, will go on to runoff in November. So what do you think that's going to mean for folks for potentially having a new district attorney at this point?
I think it means a tremendous amount. It's one of the most important, if not the most important position, I think, in Alameda County as far as like the justice system for sure, right? And they have the power to affect so many different lives, so many different communities. I'm formerly incarcerated. I was incarcerated in Alameda County. I know what it means to go up against the district attorney's office and and get shot down and not really get your fair chance. And for that to, like I said, that pendulum to swing now for someone else to come in and take on that responsibility, and someone who's progressive and really speaks to the community's needs, I think is going to be life-changing for everyone who lives in Alameda County.
Yeah, and we're hoping for that, right? But I think like one of the other things that folks should know is, I'm sure everybody too has been watching Chesa Boudin's the Prop H in San Francisco County, which was a recall of Chesa Boudin, who has, been labeled the progressive DA in San Francisco. And it's been watched across the country, right? And, I think a lot of things that I heard coming out of that race, and we didn't hear it so much in Alameda County, but one of the things that came to mind was like, well, he's getting blamed for a lot of stuff that he actually has nothing to do with, right? So in fact, like, my understanding is that district attorneys, right, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm correct on this. District attorneys only prosecute when there is a charge that is put on a person or corporation, right? And so the district attorney can charge somebody or choose not to. They can choose to enhance the charges, right? And then they can also recommend a certain amount of incarceration time, right? And then they can also offer plea bargains, and they can also offer how much they can make recommendations about bail, bond levels, and things like that. And so they cannot, y'all, so you know, they cannot clean your streets. They do not
Right.
go out and they don't go out and clean up the graffiti, right? They don't do these things. They actually are only on the prosecution end after the police are supposed to do
Yeah.
the investigations, right? And do the charges. And so I think like that's something that people really should know. They are not in charge of homelessness. We have homelessness divisions both in our city and in our county. They don't deal with housing, you know, they don't deal with jobs. They only deal with prosecution. And so they prosecute individuals, and we like to talk about crime being like individuals committing crimes, right? But actually, the people who commit the largest crimes are people who do wage theft, right?
Right.
Corporations who do toxic dumping in our communities, you
Yeah.
know, and cops, right? Who, you know, do all kinds of illegal things but don't get prosecuted by district attorneys, and it is up to the district attorney to determine whether or not they prosecute and charge somebody, and then take them to court for it, you know.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's something folks should know. So Pamela Price is currently at 40.14%. Terry Wiley is at 29.52%. But if we combine Terry Wiley and Jimmy Wilson's numbers, they would overtake Pamela Price's number currently in terms of number of votes. So it's something for folks who are watching to look forward to for the towards November for that election, and what it means, right? So that means that folks, and if we look at the election maps, clearly for the district attorney, and just when you look at these maps too, the district attorney races and the sheriff race are pretty like mirror images about, you know, like in terms of conservative to progressive, how folks voted. So Pamela Price took a lot of she dominated in Albany, Berkeley, Emeryville, Oakland, and in Alameda, parts of San Leandro, unincorporated Alameda County, which is Ashland, Cherryland, Hayward, and Hayward also. And then there's portions of like Union City and Fremont that also voted for Pamela. The one thing I wanted to note that in Oakland, if you like break down each of the precincts, Pamela like blew these people out the water in Oakland. But if you then go more east county and in Oakland, if you go to the hills, they voted for Terry Wiley, right? So our, you know, more wealthier, more suburbanite, you know, neighbors in Alameda County voted for Terry Wiley. What are your thoughts about that? Do you have any thoughts, John?
Well, fun fact, not to tell you how old I am, but my daughter went out and was doing some canvassing, and she ran into Pamela Price and sent me a picture of her. So that just goes to show you, Pamela definitely in Oakland was definitely out doing some canvassing and making sure she got the word out. Yeah, so just a super important race to stay focused on, and all the way down to, you know, to November when it's going to count the most. I worked with Pamela, I think the last time she ran maybe 4 years ago as well too, and
Like your personal
yeah, just
time,
excited.
just before you with Oakland Rising, right?
Yes,
Just to be clear
definitely
for
before.
folks.
Just to be clear, this is my personal time. We actually, another fun fact, we go to the same church.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, and yes, and in Hayward, yeah. So definitely have some history, and not only with Pamela Price, but with the district attorney and with the justice system, and just really wanted to see some much needed change.
Yeah, so I'm gonna actually, can I flip my camera? I'm gonna flip my camera and show you all. So as you can see, the green portions of this map are the precincts that have not been reported. The yellow is where Pamela Price took the votes. The salmon color is Terry Wiley, and the blue is Seth Stewart. Um, so this is important for folks to know that there's still some precincts left. Hopefully we'll be able to get an update at the end of the day. But the implications, like for this, is going to be pretty big. I think that one of the questions that folks in Oakland Rising had asked or are following and that we're following around are one, all the things we talked about, but how are they going to begin to prosecute around hate crimes is one of those. Also, people are really concerned about prosecuting cops and prosecuting corporations. Like, for example, there's a lot of corporations in Oakland, big, manufacturers and big polluters who are just leaving our communities devastated. So how are they gonna do that, right? I think those are really important. Okay, so if folks, you can also drop questions in the chat, but we're gonna move on to the next one. What's the next one, John? Which one should we take on next?
Maybe Assembly District 20?
Oh yeah, so Assembly District 20, we had, there were 4 candidates running. Liz Ortega, who is the current, I'm trying to pull up there's so many tabs, so many little things to click open. So Liz Ortega, who is the head of the Alameda Labor Council, they were running. They are now currently in the number 1 seat with 31, about to hit 32%. Sean Kumagai, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He was backed pretty heavily by by some big corporations, and as well as had taken money from a lot of police associations. The law and order kind of guy. And Liz Ortega is really down for labor and had a really strong showing by labor. The next one was Joseph Burkhardt. He got about 22%, and Jen Esteen got 20% of the vote. But again, we still have some precincts who have not reported in, so we don't know what that will mean. But it sounds like Liz and Sean are going on to do the runoff in the fall, regardless, at this point in the race. So it would take a significant shift, I think, in some of the precincts, the remaining precincts, to flip that seat.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, what else should we talk about? We had there was Board of Supervisors District 3 race to find somebody to replace Wilma Chan. Rest in peace, rest in power to her. And then, the sheriff/coroner's race. Which one?
Right. I think that the one that I'm buzzing around is the sheriff.
Ooh, Yeah. And this was the other thing that folks should know too is so Nancy O'Malley was the previous district attorney, or is the current district attorney, had been for a while, hadn't gotten challenged by anybody until 2018 when Pamela Price ran for the first time. So she was the first challenger. And then for the sheriff's department, we haven't had a new sheriff or anybody run against the sheriff for, I don't know, 50 years? That's the number I'm hearing. I don't know the exact number. I'm really bad with numbers, actually. That's why I have these things open. Don't ask me to memorize huge percentage points, y'all. So it looks like so far, Yesenia Sanchez is winning right now. has the 50 plus one, the 50 percent, 50.1%, 12% of the votes. And the difference between the two votes, so Yesenia has 75,000 votes and Greg Ahern has 51,000 votes. So he would need at least another 20,000 over the next few days to surpass her. But right now, it's, who knows? But she was out on top before, and now the gap is just widening. What do you think what's the thing that folks should know about the sheriff and the role of the sheriff and the coroner?
That they oversee the county jail, and all the budgeting for that, and and countless lives of folks that you know and love.
That's right. That's right. And Yesenia Sanchez, I don't know if that was really out there in terms of while she was campaigning, is currently the Santa Rita jail commanding officer. So the way that Jose Bernal from Elevator Center for Human Rights explained it to me was like, if you had a cruise ship business and Ahern, the sheriff, current sheriff, is the CEO, and Yesenia Sanchez is the captain of the cruise ship that you are currently on, or of the Santa Rita cruise ship. So we've had many deaths in Santa Rita. She came on in 2020. So she has been there through the pandemic, where we've had incredibly high rates of COVID infection, right? And we've recently had a few deaths there as well. And so when I'm looking at the county and I look at the sheriff's department, like it just the relationship between the sheriff and the coroner's office is also really important for folks to know about. What are your thoughts about that, Jon?
It's kind of like the police and the district attorney's office. You know what I mean? They work so closely together, and one benefits when the other one does, and it's really trying to decide you want the best of both worst worlds, and I can't. It's hard to wrap around. I mean, like you said, it's the captain replacing the CEO, and I mean, I feel like they have to be in communication and maybe somewhat aligned. But yeah, I guess like all races, you just gotta keep your fingers crossed and hope that the next replacement is better than the incumbent, and that's what I'm hoping, is that we get a lot more response out of this new sheriff.
Yeah, and we'll see if these results continue to stand, because we still have some precincts that come in, and pretty much the same as what I had shared earlier, but the color coordination is a little different, so I'm going to share that with you all so you can see. So the yellow is Greg Ahern, and the purple is Yesenia Sanchez. Joanna Walker really only had one or two little precincts in Deep East Oakland that voted for her, or really, one of the things that you can do when you go to this map, you can also click on it and actually see the breakdown of the actual votes. So in this district, in this precinct, you can see that the numbers are actually super close, right? They're very, very close. Same in this other precinct, it's heavier, more weighted toward Yesenia. So you can also just break down and see these green ones are not reported yet. But if we went to the yellow, you can also see here that even though in this particular precinct, Greg Ahern stays in this particular precinct. Sorry, the difference in that vote was only 50 votes. So when people
Wow.
talk about, oh, I'm not gonna vote. It's not that important for me to vote. Like my one vote really isn't gonna count. It actually can count as in these really tight local races, right? Um, Alicia Victory asked a question in the chat. When will Sanchez takes office if there is no runoff? They would take it in office in January because that's when everyone gets sworn in. So we'll still, even if Yesenia Sanchez wins it outright right now, they'll still be, Ahern will still be in office for the next, till the end of the year. And the other thing that I wanted to like point out was like, the coroner's office is in the sheriff's office. So the coroner, like sometimes that is a conflict of interest, right?
Right.
And I mean, what are some ways? My brain is freezing right now, but what are the ways that can cause
No,
this conflict?
I actually I can tell you that. I mean, it's a little sad and bringing up a little emotion for me when I went to go view my brother's body after he was in a car accident. It was at the sheriff's office, you know what I mean, at the coroner's office, and it was just so much conflict in just being able to go and who would be able to do it, and yeah, it was just like a lot of red tape, and I felt like it was kind of facilitated by the sheriff
Right.
and not the coroner. They weren't like warm and welcoming, like if you just had lost a loved one.
Right.
So.
Right. I feel like that's such a indicative of like most police and most sheriff's departments, right? Which feels like it isn't there. You always feel like they're looking at you like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Why did this person
Right.
die? Did they do something wrong? Rather than being able to look at the situation from a different angle and with more humanity.
Definitely.
Yeah. So there's definitely that conflict. And then another conflict is when cops murder people. And we have a sheriff that believes in law and order and wants to protect their officers, right? Like this is going to be also a place where we're going to see some conflict of interest. So I think that folks need to know and understand that as well. We're coming up on the end of time, so I just want to go over the last one, which is Board of Supervisor District 3, which, if folks don't know, is part of Oakland. There's a big portion of East Oakland that actually is not in District 3. So we found that, and then it's parts of Oakland, City of Alameda, and City of San Leandro that is part of District 3. And this was held formally by Supervisor Wilma Tan, who was like a champion for health and mental health in services in Alameda County, and really fought for like budget transparency, was one of the only supervisors always to side with community and vote against increasing budget for the sheriff's department, and really advocating hard for funding to come. And in fact, just a plug, Oakland Rising is holding our Oakland Progressives Party and Townie Awards, and our government Townie Award is going posthumously to Supervisor Wilma Chan. And so if you all haven't got your tickets, check out oaklandrising.org so that you can go and check it out. But that to be said, so it looks like Rebecca Kaplan, who is the current rep at large for Oakland City Council, is the top vote getter so far. The difference between her and Lena Tan is about 9%, which is only about 3,000 votes, y'all. So that could change pretty quickly if in these three remaining district precincts we're going to see any flip happen. But again, this is one of those places. I'm gonna flip my screen one more time, y'all. Look at that. So in this particular precinct, right, you have Rebecca Kaplan only won this precinct by 14 votes, right? Over Sterling Grant, and about twice as many votes as Lena Tan. So one, again, the voter turnout was pretty clear in terms of the impact. So here's another district in Oakland. Let's see. Let's find one. See, this one, I think this is Chinatown, near Chinatown. So Rebecca Kaplan took, this is a pretty major swing, 145 votes over Lena Tan, David Kakashiba, and Sterling Grant. So those are things that you can do by going to the map and like checking it out. But again, like, so this is a seat, obviously, that was open because Roman Chan passed away. But what are your thoughts about this race? What do you think it's going to take now that, what do you think it'll take for Rebecca Kaplan and or Lena Tam to win this election in November?
Groundwork, I think. It's like, but what it takes to win every election, right? Getting the word out, making sure you're talking to the right folks, having the right messaging, really speaking to what the community needs are. Always community first. You know, I think that's like a motto for me and for like Oakland Rising Values, is to make sure that community is involved, community is at the forefront of the decisions that are being made, and that they're being recognized on every level. So I think that's what Tam and Kaplan are going to both have to show coming November.
That's right. That's right. And like, talk to people. They got to get out and talk to people. All of these candidates really need to talk to people. And I think one of the things that, Oakland Rising, as we are working on some ballot measures for the fall. And one of them in Oakland is going to be about bringing more fair elections and into Oakland. And what we know is that, that candidate and campaign consultants and candidates like to talk to people who, what we call, are high propensity voters, or people who vote often, right? They don't want to talk to people who don't vote as often. And this is a critical thing to do, because actually, if the flatlands of Oakland and in Alameda County, all the folks that live on the west side of the hills in Alameda County came out and voted, the more progressive voices would win, right? And I think that's why oftentimes people are disenfranchised or pushed away or targeted to not participate in voting or blocked from voting, right? And we have history behind us that shows us this system wants to stop people of color, wants to stop Black folks, wants to stop poor people, wants to stop, folks from voting here. Alicia put in the chat, yes, we need to get out the vote, register, also register youth under Oakland's youth vote measure. Yeah, we're waiting, actually, Alicia, to hear from the youth vote committee, because they said that they're still working on the details so that youth can vote this November in the school district races in Oakland. But if you are 16 or 17-year-old, or a 16, 17-year-old, they can pre-register to vote now, even though they might not be able to cast their ballot yet. We know that it's better to register to them now and get them involved now. So talking to them is going to be critical. So we're up on time. Thanks Fran, for joining. So I always
Thank
love
you,
talking with you,
man.
brother. And I love that you're on our team and we're a team together. And next Tuesday at 6 p.m., I'm going to be pulling together a panel of folks, like a little bit of a town hall, to go over more deeply what the maybe hopefully final election results will be. So check that out. Follow us on Instagram and all of our social media. Go to oaklandrising.org/donate if you want to donate to us. Also, register and show up to our Oakland Progressives Party, OPP and Townie Awards. That's happening next Thursday, June 23rd, from 6 at 6 p.m. So thank you. Love you, John.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Really appreciate you.